Craig, it's so nice to see you again. We had such a great conversation and we just like really hit it off. And it's such a great pleasure to have you on my podcast and to be interviewing you. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, what a change of pace, right? I'm on the other side this time. Thank you so much for having me. Whenever you and I get together, it's straight magic. I have so much self-respect for you. And I love how I also get you so energized. So we're going to have some fun today. I'm ready to rock and roll.
You and I like energizer bunnies. We like energize each other and start like talking and getting super excited and all that kind of thing. But also I just have to congratulate you. You just recently got engaged. So congratulations. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And like I was saying to you before we went on air, like I'm just in the moment right now. I'm feeling all the feels. I'm a little bit of a cheese ball. I like using the word fiance. There's no date picked yet. I'm sure we'll start planning in about a month or so, but it feels good and I'm embracing all of it. Thank you.
I love that. I love that. Well, big congratulations. I've been married 35 years and been with
35?
my husband 35 years.
What's your secret?
Oh, our secret is just like we are secret. Okay. That is a good question. We really connect. There's such a deep, meaningful, respectful, loving relationship. I mean, I love being with him. He loves being with me. We work together. We've been together 36 and a half years. And it's just, it sounds so cheesy, but we're on cheese ball world at the moment. He is my soulmate. I mean, there's this deep knowing. I had 3 proposals before him and I just said no to all of them. And I met Mac and within a month within days, I knew that this is the guy I was going to marry. And he was just coming out of a divorce actually. So it was just so, and there's just 35 years later, 36 and a half years later, we're still crazy in love. We're renewing our wedding vows next year on our actual 35th wedding anniversary. So it's really...
What's so cool is the more you and I get together, the more alignment and synergy I feel. And I didn't have no idea about the 3 proposals, but like I was also in a bunch of relationships, one that was a little toxic, and I never really knew if that person was the one, which also means I knew that they weren't. But when I met Alessia, I knew instantly.
You just knew. Yeah.
Soulmate.
Yeah. And some people say that doesn't happen. And maybe it doesn't happen with everyone. It doesn't have to happen. I've done a whole podcast on soulmate versus growing into love. But when there's that connection when you do have it, it's fantastic. So I'm super excited for you that you do have this. So wonderful. Congrats.
When you feel that spark, it's something special.
It really is. It really is that deep, meaningful connection, that knowing. Like the first person I want to see in the morning is Mac. And 35 years later, hey, let me give you a good tip. Mac brings me breakfast in bed every single day. Like even when we're at a hotel, he'll go downstairs and he'll get me, like traveling and conferencing, he'll go get me coffee, he'll find me something yogurt or something that I like. But 35 years later, I get breakfast in bed every day. So there, Craig, that's the key to staying married for...
That's a great tip. Noted.
It's a great tip. It's a great tip. Women love that anyway. Well, Craig, tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So I reinvented myself. I spent 13 years after college on Wall Street. Up until that point, I had always felt called, but I was a bit lost in the wilderness with no compass. Graduated college. I was ambitious. I live in New York. I ended up on Wall Street. Key component here is I simultaneously discovered personal development, all the stuff that you talk about, mind management and all that stuff, gathering awareness, cleaning up the mental mess. Maybe not exactly explained like that, but I started to become
conceptually,
fascinated. Yes, but by how we can learn how to learn, we can cultivate confidence. And so I had a really nice career on Wall Street. I built 2 businesses, the 8-figure juggernauts, but ultimately, if I'm being 100% transparent, I always will with you and your audience and your listeners is, Wall Street was a lot of fun until it wasn't. As you can imagine, there's a lot of stress, a lot of unpredictability. And so I pivoted and I started a new business, which was also very lucrative. But at this time, I defined success by how much money you make. Clearly now that's a whole different story. For me, this season of my life, success is measured by how happy you are and how big of an impact you make. And I got into a little bit of a dark place a couple of years back. My father had gotten diagnosed with cancer. I'd gotten out of a toxic relationship. And even though I had my own business, Dr. Lee, it felt like I was waking up every day and going to a job. And I know the audience can relate to this at some point in their life. And on Mondays, I was looking forward to the weekend. And it like hurts me to even say this, but that's where I was at. Fast forward the pandemic, I believe it was a global awakening. But for me personally, I really put myself in a different frequency. I realized in that moment when we had lockdown, I did not want to go back. And I know that I was always meant for more. I just had to figure out what that was. And I started to put myself in that frequency to become a vibrational match for those creative divine downloads. And it came to me out of nowhere. Sometimes all you need, right, is one idea and then you run with it. And I realized that personal development wasn't only my passion, it was my purpose. And I combined that with my ability to communicate effectively. And I started my CLS brand, Cultivate Lasting Symphony, or a play in my initials, Craig Siegel. And I said, I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins. I want to be the first Craig Siegel. And you never really know how something like this will take off. But I knew this. I had to try. And I was resourceful enough to figure stuff out. And I went for it. I took a shot. I reinvented myself. And I very humbly say it's exploded over the last 2 years. I sold my business on Wall Street. This is it. And like you, this isn't work to me. I've never felt more alive. I've never been more aligned. And I'm literally living inside my vision each and every single day.
That is amazing. What an encouraging, insightful deep dive inside yourself. And what I really like about what you've said, I like a lot of things, but what I really like about what you said is the fact that you changed your definition of success. And, that's something that you and I get asked that question a lot. What do you think success is? I think it's a very common question that people ask. And my answer to that has always been, to find that internal sense of peace. And you have it's a little different, but it's a similar kind of thing. It wasn't the money. It was basically to find your passion and purpose. So to find that sense of value and internal peace, and what that looks like, it could look different. It could be lots of money. You've managed to make a lot of money in the process too. But it essentially is finding that sense of because you've worked hard to make that and to get to that point, which is fantastic. So, and I think that's really, we put so much, we in this compete culture, this compete and compare culture and hustle culture, which can make people feel so, I think, lost and frightened. What do you think about the sort of compete and compare, capitalistic, neoliberalistic, hustle culture that we live in? Because you're obviously dealing with people that are living within the bounds of that. That's why I'd love to know what your opinion on that is and how it affects mental health.
Yeah, what an awesome question. It's so funny because, and let me just be clear for the audience, like there is a season for grinding, right? Like when I started CLS in the beginning, I needed to work hard. I needed to go and figure this stuff out. But ultimately, as I become more enlightened, more aware, right? And you really start to understand like the stuff that makes the difference. It's not so much as what do you have to do as it is who do you have to be? Who do you have to become? How do you become a vibrational match for all that abundance and make yourself available? And it's something that I'm still working on, but I've gotten so much better is being able to be, right? And it goes back to those powerful conversations about masculine and feminine so much, but it's not always the hustle, right? Sometimes you have to allow and be able to receive all that. And it's something that I've worked on a great deal. And it's something I would really suggest to the audience is to really work on who you have to become to attract the life that you desire.
Okay, so it's working, and I'm pleased you mentioned about that. It is hard work. I mean, we all work hard to get anywhere. It's taken me years of hard work to do what I do and you as well. And so it's not the hard work we have to be scared of, but it's also being able to not the compare and compete situations. Find yourself. I think that's really a key thing of what you say as well. Is from what I understand from our discussions, is you're very good at helping people to find yourself and not compare to everyone else. Because as soon as you compare, you lose it.
That's it. And like, let's just keep it real, right? Like everybody is uniquely you or them. Not even twins have the same fingerprints.
Exactly.
Right. And I'm not sure if you're a fan of Deepak, but I've been listening to him a little bit lately. And one thing that he said that really stuck out to me was the sole purpose of life is to find out who you are, and who you
Absolutely.
are is the infinite trying to be a person, something along the lines of that. And it's so true. Like we're all part of this energy field, whatever you call it, a part of the collective, but each and every single person is uniquely them. We all have our own gifts. And another cool paradigm shift is, a lot of people talk about the ego and so forth, but there's a lot of people out there, let's be honest, that are playing small. They're not thinking big enough. They're not playing big enough. And for the audience, I challenge you with this. If you're not sharing your gifts with the world and making an impact and contributing, that's egotistical. So we all have our own gifts. We all are uniquely us for a reason. And the key is to identify what those are and share them with the rest of the world.
I totally agree with that. Working with people in sort of on a mental health perspective and people with challenges to their, damage to their brain and that kind of thing, which has been my field. is the first thing I would work on would be identity. It's core. It's come up in a few conversations. I've been doing interviews all day today, and it's come up a few times. If you don't have your identity, you actually, that's where it starts. Your value system, everything starts from there. And no amount of money, no amount of success and fame is going to satisfy that unique way that you are and how you see the world. So
I can relate to that. I was lost for a while, even though I was making money and some other things. I had trouble with my identity. Like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Who am I supposed to become? And then ultimately,
so something was missing in making
100%.
that money. Okay. And it's okay, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to
No, that's okay. I love this type of chat that we always have. We get each other fired up right at the gate.
Totally.
I wasn't fulfilled. Like, it's that simple. And as you realize, like, for those people that make a lot of money, first of all, how many miserable rich people do we know? Right. And let me just be clear, like, you shouldn't be really, really happy and broke either. Like, there's got to be somewhere in between. But I wasn't fulfilled because I wasn't making a difference. Right. Like, that sounds kind of dark, but I just have to be transparent and vulnerable. Like, yes, I was successful from a financial standpoint, but I wasn't exactly like doing anything that set my soul on fire. I wasn't making a dent in you. I wasn't really leaving a legacy. Right. But when I step into this stuff now, like, this conversation, if one person, the way I seek validation today, whereas if you asked me 4 years ago, seeking validation with a nice watch or a nice place, or I look good at the gym. But now the way I seek validation is someone comes up to me and goes, I heard you on Dr. Lee's podcast and something you said helped me change my perspective. And that's what it's all about today.
That's what it's all about. Oh, I totally agree. It's just so amazing how many people that go through things, and every people that I interview, people that run podcasts like yourself and myself, there's always this strong element of I've learned something, I want to share it with others. And it brings me back to one of my favorite quantum physicists that is a theorist, always says that it's not about you, it's about you in the world. That statement just really resonates so profoundly with how I see the world. And it resonates with what you're saying, is that it's not about you. It's about you in the world. And that means that there's this impact that we have in the world, that we all know it's instinctive, it's inside of us. But to actually, make that happen, and it may be big, it may be small, but all of us are having an impact that we don't even realize.
That's so beautifully said, right? Like, we have to contribute and give back and make some sort of impact. And that's when the real fulfillment comes. And also,
totally.
Spoiler, like, you do that well enough and you work hard, like, the money will come, all that stuff. But ultimately, that's what's going to really, like, fill your cup and set your soul on fire. 100% agree with that.
Oh yeah, so totally. Just before we started recording, you shared a story with me, and once again, your comment when you shared it with me, and I shared a story back, was how in alignment these things were happening in our lives. But I'd love you to, if you're comfortable, Craig, to share that story, and I'll share mine once you shared yours, and we can just talk about the implications that both of us felt, because I think it might, we may lead down a very interesting philosophical pathway.
And based upon my experience, these are the best conversations, right? Like, we don't have an agenda today. We just want to make an impact. And this is some real life stuff that Dr. Leaf and I are
absolutely.
Yeah, we're dealing with at the same time. And first of all, I love you. You make me feel so comfortable. Like, when you speak, like, it's so digestible, and there's obviously instant chemistry here. So
the feeling's mutual.
Yeah, and I can't wait to do even more. What I was saying, Dr. Lee, before we went on air is, today's Tuesday. Last Friday, I was involved in a hit and run in New York City. I was crossing the street, as I always do. I look to the right. If there's traffic on this particular side street, I will yield. On this particular moment and day, I look to the right. There's a blue car speeding right at me. From the moment that I saw it, and I'm trying to paint a visual for the audience, like, it was 2 feet away. So at that point, it wasn't, can I get out of this? It was like, how do I minimize the damage? So I braced myself with my arm, because my thought process was, if my arm takes the bulk of the impact, it's better than my body or my head. So the car ran right into my forearm, and then I spun around kind of like a football move, and then it grazed my hip, kept going, speeding through 2 more red lights, gone. Some truck driver pulls up right next to me, goes, oh my God, are you okay? That was an unbelievable spin move. That guy ran through 2 red lights. After he hit you, call the cops immediately. So I did, and all that stuff. And I went to get an x-ray, and it came back negative. And I'll probably still see an orthopedic just to see if, like, there's any ligaments. But for the most part, I just want to be very clear. I'm good. Like, I'm relatively unscathed. And you would think like after something like that, like you would feel immortal, like Superman, like a tank. And I believe in a higher power. Like I always thought I was blessed, and I'm very humbled and grateful from this. But the irony is, and this is what we're discussing, is that as opposed to feeling super immortal from an experience like that, I've actually never felt more mortal, because it just goes to show you, like, just in an instant, everything can change right then and there.
Mm. And how has that impacted your life in the last week and a half in terms of relationships, work, how you look at life, your viewpoint? What has it done?
The last few days, I've just been in a weird frequency for me. I wouldn't call it like down or depressed or anything like that, just weird, because it's unfamiliar territory to me. And I have questions, right? Like, not so much like catching the guy, like we'll see what the NYPD does. And I know they're busy, but it's more like what was the message in this? What am I supposed to gather from this? How did I walk away unscathed? I'm not even sure. I'm still processing it, but I just feel weird. But to your point, like, it just goes to show you, I know me and you live like this anyway, but for the audience, maybe this is good to hammer home. Like, guys, girls, we have to make every second count, because things can be taken away in an instant. And you never really think, like, you'll hear something on the news, like Kobe Bryant passing in a helicopter, and like it hits you, but until it really happens to you or someone that you love, like, it's very real. And like, if you're not around people that you love, or if you're not doing something that really sets your soul on fire, it's a message, it's a flashlight. Like, lean into the stuff. Like, if this was your last day, if this was your last month, what would you want to be doing? Who would you want to be around? And it really is a wild paradigm shift, at least for me. And I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Oh, absolutely. You're describing a concept that I talk about it's not my concept, but it's something I talk about a lot. And that's the living with memento mori, which is basically, what would you do if this was your last day on earth? How would you live? How would you treat the people in your life? How would you view things that irritate you? How would you look at that problem that you've got? How would you view, what is your perspective? And when you wake up, and in my app, it's actually one of the brain preps that I actually encourage people to do, my neurocycle app. And it's like, today, if you live like that today, and I've tried to apply that principle. And, when the days I do that, I look at life so differently. And it's becoming such a habit now because I've trained myself. But it's so easy, Craig, to get caught up in the busyness of life. We all know that. And we have to bring ourselves back. So sometimes it does take these little incidents to wake us up. Not that we want to have these incidents where you have a brush with death like that. And as you told me, I shared my story with you, which some of the listeners and viewers may have already heard. I haven't shared this on a podcast yet because it just happened very recently. So this is the first time I'm sharing this. And basically, just over 2 weeks ago, it was a Friday morning, and I woke up with this excruciating pain, thinking, I got food poisoning, because it was 8 hours after I'd eaten. So that was my automatic response. I have such a strong mind that my body just I just don't respond. I just get through things, and I'm very healthy. And, my mind is like strong. I've developed it. So my body follows suit. And so I actually then thought, okay, this is not going away. So, put a hot water bottle on my stomach and keep going. And I'm working and I'm doing meetings. And 4 days later, I'm thinking, hey, maybe this is gastro. This is not food poisoning. It's going. But 4 days later, I had back-to-back 9-hour day on Monday, back-to-back meetings on the Tuesday. And I remember sitting there with this totally, like, you would never have suspected there was anything wrong, except my husband was sitting next to me and I was shaking. I had this big winter jacket on. I was like, could hardly move, but you would never have known that. And as I finished that last meeting, I literally collapsed. My husband put me in the car, took me straight to the doctor. He'd been begging me to go to the doctor. I'm saying, no, I'm fine. I'll get through this. The normal thing I do. And I land up there at the doctor, straight to a hospital, straight into emergency surgery. I was already in septic shock from a burst appendix. And the surgeon said they whipped me in antibiotics up into surgery. It was, did very CT scans to just make sure everything, but it was within hours. Surgeon said to me after the surgery, and her surgical nurses said, they came to me and they just literally said, if you had left it like this, literally maybe another 3-4 hours, you would have died. You would not have made it through the evening. You would have not have made it through the night. And that's how much pus and septic shock my body had gone into. The irony is that I'm always got my makeup on, hair done, outfits. I don't go anywhere without it, just because who I am. I go into the hospital, I'm all dressed up. I've got this outfit on, I've got makeup on, and I sit, and as I'm collapsing in the hospital, the nurse is saying to me, you don't even look sick, but your blood pressure is like tanking, and everything's like dying. And and as soon as I realized what had happened, my body started feeling the pain and that kind of thing. And then I realized I have to actually, let my body get some healing. The point is that you talk about the brush with morality. I mean, the realization of not morality, our mortality. It hit me, two of my daughters, we've got 4 children, 2 were overseas at that time, and they were coming back like a week later because they work for me. We meet back in Dallas, our studio is, and we do all our work. And so every few months they come back and we have this and they were coming back in a week. I thought, I may never have seen my 2 younger children. I had just seen my 2 elder children, my 2 other children, but I would maybe not have seen them. And, I wouldn't have seen my husband's face. It just struck me. And I didn't say goodbye to my mother, all these things. And I didn't feel like I was dying. It was really a tremendous shock. It's almost like this is exaggerating. And when the nurses came a second time and said, really, this is serious. Your body is, I need to keep, the doctor said you have to stay in hospital for at least 7 days on multiple antibiotics and drips, because my body was a mess, dehydrated. Yeah. And that was a Tuesday. On the Thursday, I said, listen, I'm fine. I need to go home. I can't be in hospital. They let me go home after 2 days. And when I went for my postdoc again today, they just said, it's a miracle that you've actually. So the point there, though, is yes, my mind definitely healed my body quicker. Yeah. I got through something that wasn't really easy to get through, but the brush with mortality has completely and utterly shifted my perspective. And I'm pretty deep thinking like you, and I'm pretty aware of.
You're the deepest thinker.
Memento mori. I try and live like that, but it's shifted my perspective. I look at life very, very differently. And I already looked at life differently, but there's a depth, there's a quietness that's come over me. There's a sense of bigger purpose. There's a sense of the depth of godness, or whatever you want to call it. There's a way that I look at my kids and my husband and my work, and there's a sense of urgency, and there's a sense of respect for every single moment. And little things like I caught myself getting thoroughly irritated about something the other day that was so ridiculous, and I could have let it get me down, and immediately I remembered, but this is so irrelevant in the big picture of things, and I brought myself back. It's just given me a depth and a look, and I look at people differently. I see people differently. I see problems differently. I see reactions differently. So that's, I'm going on and on. Back to you. You're the one being interviewed now. You're literally interviewing me. But just bounce off that.
Everything about our relationship seems to be divine. Like, this is the perfect conversation at the perfect time. 2 friends that just went through a near-death experience. And also, when you were going through it, it didn't feel like you were dying. Just like me. I responded almost like a ninja. I didn't think.
I love it, the ninja.
I didn't think this was it for me. I just said, how do we minimize the damage? And you know what I'm saying? And then I did the spin.
Yeah, but the chance of survival of something like that was just such a small percentage.
I still can't explain it. But then afterwards, a couple of days later, which is now, it's now you start to think, right? And just like you, I found myself getting irritated at something yesterday, and I had to check myself. Wait a minute, does this even matter in the grand scheme of things? No, it does not. And also, like you, I was already a deep thinker, make every second count, do what you love, and be present. But now, being present on a whole nother level. Even right now, I do not care about anything that's happening a half hour from now, anything that happened a half hour ago. I'm just with you, present, mindful. And in my personal opinion, the more present you are, that's a portal to expansion. And for the audience, this is a good takeaway. When you're really, really mindful and present in the moment, it's the closest that you get to creating expansion and really expanding and creating. And it's really heightened the way I feel about that experience.
I love that. You put words on something that I couldn't put words on. When you said portal, that's definitely, it's opened a whole different view. It's like the creativity that's come out of me, the science, the amount of work that we have moved forward, good stuff, this amount of science, research. It's impossible to do what we've done in the last 2 weeks as a team. And it's been driven by these ideas are pouring out of me, these visions, these ways of helping people. The doors are opening. We're reaching more and more people. We've got the portal has opened. And there's a sense of depth and creativity. And I don't want people to have a near-death experience like you and I've had to experience this. If we could try and translate this to, and if you had to ask me, and I want to ask you this before I give you mine, what would be getting into that portal to open a door? We're seeing more. There's depth that I knew was there, but it's clear. There's a clear vision. There's a clear way forward for how I can touch more people with the work that I'm doing and build deeper relationships with my kids. I'm seeing a difference in my relationship with my kids, and I already had a great relationship with them. What would be like, could you take one word? Because I've got a word in my head and I'm very interested to see if you have the same word. What would be one word to sort of wrap that up or describe that or is there maybe you don't have a word?
It's just, to be honest with you, like the portal to expansion with the abundance right now and the creativity and the creation and losing the scarcity and the ego and just thinking abundantly, like everything just feels heightened, more important. And also the best part maybe is like the less important stuff feels just that, like less important. Like I'm not going to really stress or worry or care or waste time over something that's insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And this really helped facilitate what is most important. So to be honest with you, I'd love to hear your word because I know you were bouncing off the portal one.
It's the word is kindness. Oof. Kindness to self, kindness to others, a gentleness. It's almost as though there's a hastiness, but it's come within the bounds of a kindness. And I think I was always a kind person. But there's a sense of kindness being this vitally important. It's linked in with love, obviously. Well, that's something we talk about love. We all understand that love is what literally makes the world go around.
Yeah.
This concept of kindness, there's just so much unkindness around. When you're kind to someone, or including being kind to yourself, it starts with being kind to yourself. There's a change, there's a shift, and people respond. Things change without you having to say that much. So 100%. That's been for me, I have very, very heightened sense of the need and the importance of kindness and how that's missing a lot in the world around us today. With all our busyness, we've forgotten what kindness means.
I agree. I want to bounce off that also.
Please, go ahead.
Another word that comes to mind is humility, because like it would be so easy to go the other direction into something like that. Like nothing could stop me, like unstoppable, so to speak. But
yeah,
you have that close of an encounter, it makes you humble, right? Like of course, like thank God, like I know that was you. I know there was something else going on there, but very humbled. Like things can happen that are outside your control, right? And things can change in an instant. And to know that you're taken care of, so to speak, or someone's got your back and you have another day, it's like a different type of humility. And to be honest with you, I just unpack that right now during this conversation with you.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that, because definitely that's totally true. Humility, because you look at yourself differently. You realize that you're part of, it's not about you, it's about you in the world. And it's about the gift that you bring to the world. And we say all these things, but it's really is true. And a lot of people that have had near-death experiences or have really actually died and they've actually seen themselves and then they come back, that's such a common theme of people, deep, meaningful kindness, humility, love. Those are always kind of called together, aren't they? Sort of pulled together. So I love that. I love the humility, because humility is not it's not a false humility. It's a humbling of the humbling experience of being human, of being alive, of being aware of the phenomenal privilege of being a human alive, being able to.
It's hard to think about ever being more humbled or humble after a situation like this.
Oh yes, for sure, absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners and viewers are, have your own stories to share. I mean, send in your stories and let's hear what you've got to say in response to this. And if you've got any particular insights or words or that you want to share and what that means for you. So Craig, coming back to the portal thing, I think I love that. I love that portal kindness, humility. We've got some really key things going on here. So what is this going to mean for you now for the future? How does this take you, your business, you as a person, Craig, what you do, your future marriage? How do you see a new sort of, is it different? Is the pathway now different? Is this portal different?
In a word, expansion. And let me dive in on that. Like, we're all here to create, to expand, and we get jaded through life, whether it be society, the news, our upbringing, whatever the case may be. And we get this misconception that we're actually meant to live in scarcity and we have to work at trying to be abundant, when in fact it's the opposite, right? It's like Deepak said, like we're a part of the infinite, pretending to be a person, whatever it is that you believe in, if you're a soul in the spirit, human experience. But we're meant to create, to expand. We just have to make ourselves available for it, for all the abundance out there, right? You have to have certainty. You have to be vibrating on that frequency. This is a vibrational universe, right? Like you don't manifest
it's an organized,
what
systematic.
you want. Yeah, you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are.
Yeah, very different to like attracting. We're not talking about here that you're vibrating and attracting. That's just, it's external. It's from inside out. It's you.
Yes.
Got to develop yourself as a human, and part of that development is that interaction with others, that kindness, that humility, that's expansion into connecting with others and helping to make the world what it should be.
Yeah, and contribute to it. Yeah.
If we look at all the diversion and pathways, you just look at politics, and you look at what's going on in the United States and in the world, and just in history, if you track history, there was more kindness and humility and a desire for expansion to touch other people's lives. I wonder if we would be doing, have the same kind of history.
Yeah, it's so true. I had to ask you, it just occurred to you when you're moving your hands around, where are all the props today?
Oh, you know what? We've just been on I've got some. I mean, there's some of them here. There's one, and I've got some brains here. But the others we just got back from a conference, and I realized that I've been in the studio all day, and I'm trying to find my toxic tree and my other brains and everything, but they're still packed in the other, they're still packed. I hadn't unpacked them yet. So sorry I don't have my toxic thoughts.
That's okay. I wanted to ask you, the last time we spoke when you were on my podcast, you talked about you were kind of wrapping up like a new book that had to do with like helping young children revamp their mindset.
I was actually spoke to my publisher today. It's basically going to lay out, and it's going to be released next year. We're hoping Mental Health Month. But as we know, with COVID, there's a bit of delay in printing, but it's done. And it's basically to help parents help their children with mental health. And, mental health has you and I discussed this before, but mental health is such a mess, with a biomedical model and people being so frightened and not being able to, embrace their emotions and thinking emotions are illnesses, and our children are growing up with the wrong understanding, thinking that they've got to suppress their feelings. Meanwhile, growing up shouldn't be pathologized, and parenting has been made to be this really scary thing that you can't do it unless you have experts consulting you. So the book is really about helping parents to understand the nature of the mind-body connection, what is a thought, and how to actually use the neurocycle system with their children as a lifestyle. Very simple, it's very hands-on. So I'm very excited about that, to try and help our youth and our children. So there's two books. The first one's in, and it's for 3 to 10-year-olds. I mean, you can teach a child of 3 how to manage their mind. Children are so insightful. And it's so important that we do that. So that's what the book's about. So, yep. That's
in regards to that, I wanted to acknowledge you, because on that same conversation we were talking, I asked you for a tip with my nephew, Skylar, my brother's son. And
I remember.
Yes, you said this, and I performed it and exercised it, and it was a beautiful thing. And I want the audience to hear it too. You said when you come home, let's just say if they're a crappy day or something, don't hide your emotions. It's okay to let the kid know that you had a day or something was bothering you, but then allow them to see how you handle it and what you do about it, as opposed to kind of ignoring it like it didn't exist. And I thought that was brilliant. And I utilized it with him, and I could see him like starting to like understand now, like, it's okay to have a tough day, or if you don't win, you lose, and understand those feelings. But most importantly, how do you respond?
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that it worked and that you did that, because I know your nephew is like really important to you. And that is fantastic. And it's true. We are modeling the best way. That's why I say in this parents' book, that's exactly that. What you do is what they'll do. And this whole thing that if you give this impression as an adult that, oh, I've got it all together. We don't ever have it all together. We are in a process of, it's a lie. And kids know that, but they don't know how to verbalize. They don't know how to process, but deep down inside, they recognize, they're intuitive enough. I mean, 2-year-olds, babies recognize things. It's just that, we've underestimated what children's ability is to perceive things, but they don't yet have the language and, the ability to sort of, what does that mean? And that's why as adults, if we can model and say, I had a bad day because this happened. So that's you're gathering awareness and then reflecting and explaining. You are modeling the child how to not just be aware, but to actually own it And it's okay to be a mess, and then to process through that. And yeah, that's what I do with, even now I have adult children, and I am very careful. I will certainly, I've had, I got frustrated or whatever. I will explain that to them and go through that process and model that, and they do it automatically.
To be honest with you, like, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you about the hit and run and just kind of talk it out a little bit. And I think that was awesome for the audience to hear, because we're not hiding from the fact that it made us feel some type of way. But how do we take those feelings and kind of channel them? But we're not pretending they didn't exist, right? We're feeling the feels. We're allowing ourselves to feel that. But how do we respond? And I think that's awesome.
Well, let's take that a little bit deeper. Let's do a little exercise. How about that, Craig? How about so that you know the neuropsych because you're familiar with it. So the first thing is to gather awareness. But maybe just before that, if you think about potentially your kind of shock in the moment, so maybe even thinking back to that may make your heart flutter a little bit. I don't know if you're feeling any kind of physical as you started speaking, because I noticed when you wanted to speak about it really quickly, and it was like something very serious. Your face, because you're a very bouncy, smiley person, and there was a sort of shadow that came over you. So there was a trauma response there. It was scary. So I don't know if you felt the need, or if you feel the need at the moment by revisiting to maybe just do a bit of calming down of your neurophysiology. And you could do something as simple as, you don't even have to close your eyes. If you just breathe in 3 counts, 1, 2, 3, and then breathe out for 7, but whoosh it out, force it out for 7 counts. So it's in 2, 3, and then out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, and that pushing out, that really, so it's a deep, and put your hand on your stomach. So there's a real inhalation. So it's, you really fill up. So 1, 2, 3, a deep breath, and then push that out. You may feel a little high. If you repeat that 6 to 9 times, which is 60 to 90 seconds, you actually may feel a little like flash of like, whew, almost like you've, high. And it's a natural response of increased oxygen. It causes various neurochemicals like anandamide and things like that to flow, which give you that sense of sort of almost calmness and high, and it calms down your neurophysiology. So that could be something when we have a traumatic experience, when we think about it, to actually do that. Because when it hit me, for example, when I woke up the next day and the surgery nurse said again, because I don't think I processed this that night, and they said, you really nearly died. You would not have made it another 3, 4 hours. If you even did, you would never have made it through the night. And that's when it hit me, and I suddenly realized whatever. And I felt I actually had to do some breathing. So this is real. This is not, they're just being melodramatic. So you may have had that little thing. So it's always good to just recognize and honor that neurophysiological response and do something like, there's so many different things. But that breathing one is my go-to every time. It's unbelievable.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's so simple and so effective. And to be honest with you,
it's so effective.
It's on right now. And also, you're 100% right. I brought it up to you right away, and the old Craig wouldn't have done that. But I just, number one, I feel very comfortable with you, obviously. And I wanted to get it off my chest. I just wanted to express it. And I do feel better, especially after that breathing exercise. But it goes back to what you're teaching, right? Like, don't suppress the emotions.
No.
Here's a pill, right? Like, talk about it, like work through it. And then how do we respond?
Exactly, because you could have chosen to, which I think is your previous way that you used to operate. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you would have, I got it. And, the sort of macho 100%. Side and I did this and I'm fine. And, you would have kind of maybe just, talked about it, but in a way that was, but meanwhile inside it was there, it was churning. It was a, you faced death for a few, a very literally almost certain death.
To be honest with you, I feel better now talking to you.
There you go. So you gathered awareness. You talk. So in that moment, you were in an adrenaline high. But when it hit you, what had actually happened, what emotions went through you? Gather awareness. What did you feel? Can you remember? Or can you analyze it?
It's funny because my brother came shooting out. As you know, he's my best friend. I told him not to. He's in Long Island, but he wanted to come, and he came with my fiance, who was just at a doctor's appointment. And my brother told my parents, because they told me after, he's like, I never seen Craig like that. He looked like a deer in the headlights. Like, the lights were on, but nobody was home. I think I'm just a little bit in shock because I'm just processing the whole thing. Like, how did I walk away relatively unscathed? And then obviously you feel a little violated, right? Because somebody hit me and then got away. But I'm not too concerned with that. Like, of course, it'd be nice if they catch them, but I just a little bit of shock. Like, I have some questions, and it's just a weird feeling because I'm not familiar with this feeling. I've never experienced it before. So it's kind of unfamiliar territory, but I'm working through it.
That's amazing. So there we go. You gathered awareness of your emotions, violated, shock. Maybe I haven't heard you say anger, violated, shock. What was the other one you said? What was the other emotion you said? You said violated and shock. You said that your
Mortality,
the mortality, but your behavior was to your action was you did that physical action, but you had your behaviors to your brother were like you looked like a deer with headlights. So you were in.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't you. That wasn't the Craig, the happy, bouncy Craig who just
Correct.
like, you actually were, your behaviors reflected that, that mortality factor. Your body was probably incredibly tense. I mean, you had the physical brush with your arms, so it must have been a bit sore, but just so that may be, the memory may be in that part of your body, that there may be tension in that part of your body, because memory is, what we're talking about are the 4 warning signals: emotions, behaviors, your hand. So is it in your hand? Your emotions, behaviors, your behavior was the deer in the headlights, the physical sensation in your body. And then the perspective of the mortality would be your perspective, that heightened sense of mortality. So you gathered awareness of those and then you started reflecting. And the reflecting was, you already said, you have questions. Why did this happen? Why did this person? Why were you? Why in that place? Why did it not? All the whys. And then it would be a good thing exercise for you to maybe go and do after our talk now is go write it down, because the 3rd step is to write it down.
I've been journaling. Yeah.
Have you been journaling? Okay. Because I know you are a big journaler. So it'll be interesting to know if you've journaled around this, what other stuff came up, because it may bring up all kinds of things. The key is the first step, the first time you write is just pour it out on paper. Just let whatever come out. So it may not even feel like it's related, but there's something there. And then go back and look at what you've written and take a highlighter or another color and just, sort of the kinds of things you were talking about. This is what's happened now. What does this mean in the portal and the expansion? That part of the discussion we had was very much a recheck, step number 4. And your action, your active reach, what are you going to do with this? It sounds like what is your active reach from this expanded portal? What does that actually translate into action wise? What is that?
So it's funny, like if I was at a dead end job or if I was doing something that didn't make sense to me, this would have been a real wake up call. The irony is I am doing what I absolutely love and what my purpose is, but now it's like time to take it up even another notch, right? Like more traveling and transfer more energy and so forth, and just stick with the mission. But I think one thing's for certain, that me and you still have big plans here with this human experience. But I wanted to just ask you real quick, like those were some of my emotions once I came to, and like the shock kind of wore off a little bit. When they had told you the next morning that another 3 or 4 hours, you wouldn't be here right now. Like, how did that make you feel?
At first, I felt like my first reaction was, are they being a bit melodramatic? Is this not exaggerated? Isn't this? And then when they came back, they could see that I didn't really process it the first night because I was so full of morphine and whatever. But the next, and the anesthetic and things, but that's when they actually, the nurse said, you nearly died. And then the surgeon came in and they were talking over, and then it hit me. And there was this like, it hit me in the pit of my stomach. I remember taking this gulp and thinking, I may not have seen my kids again, my husband again. A few days later, I was training our first group of certified facilitators. We now have a certified facilitator program where people can become certified. And I think I told you about this before. So it's a full-on certification program where people can be neurocycle facilitators and so on. And I was supposed to train. I mean, I did. But a 4-day training, I was going to be on my feet for 8 hours a day. And so when they said I have to go for surgery, my thing was, I can't. I have to go. In a few days' time, I have to go and train 30 people that are flying in from all over the country for 40 hours over 4 days. And the surgeon said, that's when she said, you're not going to be alive if you don't have the surgery. No, you won't last. And that's what hit me. And I realized that, okay, well, I have to be better. So that was that emotion. It was almost, I couldn't believe it. And then it hit me. And then I texted my husband, who had just gone to go and get coffee or something. I said, come back. And so I processed it with him. It was a shock. And, then it was, okay, well, I'm not.
Did you feel any sadness?
Did I feel sadness? I felt a sense of awe. And I don't think I didn't feel sadness. I felt sure, a sense of awe that I'm still here, that there's everything that I had worried about up until that point, because I used to be the worst worrier, and I've trained myself, and I realized that I've neurocycled through the worry. Yeah. And I realized that, hey, I've got this under control. I realized then I'm still worrying about certain things, and I need to work on those because they're not necessary to worry about those things. I need to turn destructive worry into constructive worry. That sort of thing hit me. But it was the immediate reaching out, because I'm a parent of 4 children. The immediate thing was I wouldn't have seen them again. I wouldn't have been here. My kids were arriving back on the Monday, and this was the Thursday. And I remember thinking they would have come back to a funeral. They wouldn't have come back to this very exciting new phase of our business.
Yeah.
And that hit me when I saw them. We all just burst into tears when they came in the door on the Monday, and my other daughter arrived on the Sunday, and then the other 2 on the Monday. And my son, he's in SF, but he was on the phone. I mean, we all just like, this could have been a funeral.
Yeah.
And then the realization of, that was really there. I felt very, very emotional. And, it shifted how I've done everything since. It's been, and there's another level of depth to everything I do.
I want to ask you one more paradigm shift in regards to that. We both agreed that we felt a bit of mortality, because just knowing that like things can change in an instant. On the flip side, do you feel like a sense of like powerful that, you not only survive that, but, you have another day and you have a big message to continue to spread?
Definitely. I wouldn't have called it powerful, but that definitely could be a word that one could use. I think what I felt was a sense of urgency. And that urgency, but an urgency that's organized, not a chaotic urgency, a very organized urgency. And you talk about the frequency and quantum physics, and we have our biofield, and, the reason our blood flows is because of energy, and the reason our brain works is because of the energy from the mind. So it was I found something inside myself in the depths of my unconscious mind that I knew was there, but it's suddenly out. And that was something I remember saying to my husband, I feel like something's opened up that wasn't there. So when you said the word portal, and that maybe you could say there's a like I'm energized, powered up to do. It's like doors have broken down, and there's opening now. We can see ways to reach more people. And did you feel that? Did you feel a sense of power?
I'm feeling it right now. This just happened Friday, and this conversation is facilitating that and helping it. And also something that you often say is something along the lines of like energy is not lost, right? Like it's transferred. It's transferred. Yeah,
it's transferred. So from the destructive, you weren't in a destructive, neither of us were in a destructive state, but there's always levels. There's always behind the smiley face and the very confident people, there's always the flaws and the weaknesses, I don't like to say weaknesses, but these are things that worry us. And those changed perspective. Those became, I remember reading once, and you'd love this, Craig. I remember, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He is not, I think he's dead now, but he was about 98 when he was interviewed. And he was still like going for runs and still practicing as a doctor. And when this person interviewed him, he actually said, what is the key to this life that you are so productive still in the work that you're doing, and doing incredible work in the field of medicine. And one of the things that struck me most was he turned around and he said, I don't sweat the small stuff. I realized in that moment when that surgeon said to me, and as the days, it didn't hit me quite then, it was in my unconscious, and it came over the next few days, that I have sweated the small stuff way too much, and I'm not going to do that anymore. That is now not going to happen, because that sweating the small stuff is taking that good energy and it's using it up. Like all the apps open on your cell phone, and your cell phone gets dead, or you don't plug in your computer and use it all day and everything's open and you don't shut everything down. That sweating the small stuff drains energy, and that 100%. Energy could be converted into getting yourself into that expanded portal. So that's what I experienced. I don't know if that goes to your experience.
No, that makes perfect sense. Because if you're allocating energy on the small stuff, then you're not available for those other creative divine downloads or that other abundance or the vibrational, whatever that it might be, the portal.
Exactly.
So yeah, 100%. This is so powerful today.
This is so powerful. We've been going for an hour, and I literally have to, I'm supposed to be in a meeting in like 4 minutes. And okay, so we just have to continue. We'll just have to bounce back and forth of each other's podcasts and continue this 100%. Discussion. I'm going to throw out to the listeners and the viewers now, what sort of things would you like Craig and I to dive into? Do you want us to dive deep into these kind of questions? And let's see send us an email, send us a DM, put a comment on the podcast. Go to Craig's page, put a comment there, and we'll take these topics, and as you can see, we free flow with conversations and dive in. And even though I know this happened when you interviewed me, we were going back and forth and kind of interviewing each other at the same time. We'll do the same thing. And so I put that out to the readers. But Craig, the viewers, Craig, where can people get hold of you and follow you and learn more from you, because you have so much wisdom? And now you've got even more wisdom. You've entered the new portal.
Yeah. And also, I can't wait to see you kind of incorporate that story into some of your new content and give some valuable lessons. Best place to find me is probably on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, anywhere at Craig Siegel _CLS. If you want to find out about our communities, our membership, mastermind, stuff like that, cultivatelastingsymphony.com. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, the CLS Experience. Of course, my favorite episode ever with Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Oh, and this is one of my favorites with you. This has been amazing. What an amazing discussion. I have loved this, every moment of it. It's almost like I didn't have to prepare. And it was just, I did. I'm always prepared. But everything I had actually written down to ask you, I don't think I actually typed, I should say.
We'll do a secret, but honestly, it's the best. It's like a real conversation, not so much as an interview. And we have that chemistry. And to be honest with you, I think that's what makes the most powerful and valuable conversation for your listeners.
Exactly. I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Go enjoy your fiance, enjoy your evening, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.